Alrighty folks, if you follow any of my other videos, then you're probably here because of this thing. This is a Camry 1MZ, formerly Camry, now in a different production car. Keeping Australian production alive, we have the AH-TBA-001 tuber prototype. So this 1MZ has ITBs on it. It's obviously not in a Camry. If you follow my other videos, or even if you didn't, here's a recap of what happened.
I've got some nice kick going on.
So pretty much what happened was all the oil went into the head and didn't go back into the sump because someone thought second gear donuts was a pretty ridiculously cool idea. So consequently now we have a few bearing shells that are mostly in the sump, but some of it was left in there. So what we're going to do to help that along is, apart from the drain issues, which other Toyota motors actually suffer from, particularly this one. So not really this version of this motor, but the earlier versions of this motor, which is the infamous 4AG, which is a controversial copy of a Ford motor, which I'm waiting for the comments on that one. So anyway, I went against the grain with this one. So what people usually do to stop these running out of oil is restrict the oil feed to the head. Now, I don't like that idea at all. I think the head should have as much oil as humanly possible or mechanically possible. So what I did was I just made the oil pathway to the sump bigger and multiple. So that's what I plan to do with this. So going along the lines of the 4AG over there, that's my Starlet. There are plenty of videos on my channel about that as well. So what I'm actually going to do eventually is just down here put an external oil drain in there. Now that was the first plan to get the oil flowing back to the sump. Now as you can see from these tubes here, punching those tubes out and making the oil pathway a lot easier to go down, well, I don't know what they were thinking with that. Anyway, so to get the oil back down, my first thing I was going to do is that, but seeing as it'll have to massively bank up in the head to even get there, it's literally probably going to become an external breather. So what I really want to do is go a little bit on the advice of what a few other people have said, which is to overfill the oil capacity. Now, I'm not too much of a fan of overfilling the oil on these motors because the sump is pretty shallow and they don't really have much windage protection. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to not overfill the oil by 1 litre like everyone says to do. I'm just going to modify the sump. Now I'm going to do it my way, and my way might be different from how other people have done it, but why stop now? I've just done it my way my entire life, so I'm just going to do it my way and see what works. The advantage of doing it your own way is that you can take everyone else's opinion and take all the good bits out, and you can just do the best possible thing from all versions. So maybe I can help other people out in the future that look at my design and think, wow, I can improve on that. So on that, if you do have any improvements, then man, shoot me a message, leave a comment, do whatever. I'm always open to suggestion. So this is the 1MZ. That's the right way up, and now that's the right way up. So this sump, this motor usually sits on a tilt in the car. As you can see from here and the previous video, the pan is pretty shallow, and on this pan the oil level is actually pre-focus. The oil level is actually just here, so it only retains about 1.9 to 2.1 litres of oil in the actual sump when the engine is running. So even though that might sound a fair bit, it's not super ideal when you're doing high RPM, sustained driving or loading, particularly with the sort of stuff that we sort of, plan to do with that thing there. So as you'll see from the sort of circular video from earlier, what happened was it threw all the oil into the back bank, and it sort of just hung on there. So if it had more capacity to pick up, it could essentially be able to have a lot more reserve to pump a bit more. And hopefully with the changes that I've made to the drainage situation, it will actually return to the sump a bit more. So I'm just going to increase the capacity of this little tub, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to cut it along this line here where it's flat, and you can even see the ridge from the sunlight hitting it. So I'm just going to cut that all the way around to where it's all square, and just bump it up. Now I've got the advantage here where it's essentially not a road vehicle, but I'm 105 mil off the ground at the sump. So I mean, even in a street car, and if I'm rambling, just skip. So I've got 105 mil from the sump to the ground under there, which, on a race car, that's actually a fair bit. And as you can see, my exhaust is a fair bit lower. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to be conservative about it, but I'm going to dump my oil pan down by just 30 millimeters. The advantage to 30 millimeters is I still have 75 millimeters of ground clearance, and literally I could drive to Bunnings and roll over a speed bump with this, because the sump is in the middle of the wheels. It's all good. It's not like other layouts. So I will gain 1.14 litres of capacity by adding 30 mil more to this sump. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take the sump off of Clack Charlie over here, and clean it all up, get rid of all the paint off it, so I have a nice clean slate to work off. First rule of metalwork: start with a good product. So I'll go ahead and clean that up and start marking it, and maybe just make some cuts then. Okay, now it's all cleaned up. Just going to find the line and mark it with the ubiquitous green tape, and then I'll slice it off. We can move to the next step. So I've cut these two strips at 45 millimeters, and they're just I think they're like 1.2 mil steel or something. Just a tip, if you're using galvanized steel, you got to take the galvanizing off because it's zinc, and even though zinc is conductive, you will get a lot of crap and artifacts in your weld, and your weld could become porous. So especially if you're doing oil stuff, you want to clean it all off and make it nice to weld and make it easy for yourself. Alright, so now that we've got our basic shape profile marked out, what we're going to do is put that into here, and I'll just mark from here at 30 millimeters, sink into there, just clamp it on the sides and buzz it around. Another thing I would like to achieve is to get the pickup into the center. So while we're sort of extending it anyway, I may as well cut on this flange, and then I can rotate that around and get it like reasonably in the center. And so this is the final position. Well, so bang smack in the middle of the sump. So the reason that I wanted to build the sump this way is that from here I can make all the baffles and put everything and sort of tack it into here without having to work through and under stuff, and then when I pull it out, flip it over, I'll just put a windage tray on the top, box it all off. So I've made a bunch of these like little fillets, and what I'm going to do, just put them all in, all the way around the sump. That should be pretty good. It's like a matrix kind of deal. So this is the same as like the Mazda MX-5 uses and the Corvette uses. No tricky trappy flap doors or anything. Just literally just pushes the oil into one area and it banks up and stops it flowing. Well, if nothing, it's definitely an idea that holds water. Because I'm a lover of the double oval, I've reinstated the little reinforcement that they had. So pickup is now in the center and it has this little doodle to lean on, as we all do. And now it's all supported and it's good as OEM. So here's the janky end product, 1.2 litres more in a prism configuration with baffle plate. I don't give a fuck about rounding the edges because fuck me, it's going to be in a sump and I really don't give a fuck. The gaps on the end are there for the reason to let oil through. A lot of people will weld it all the way up the top, but honestly, how the hell is your oil going to get from the edges to the bottom? You're working backwards. So yeah, I'm just going to flap this and make it look all pretty, because people care about Instagram welds, and then paint it with some feeler bits, and then we'll be able to like bang it on like something like that. Have the camera something on like that, and have a 75mm ground clearance, and we'll be all good. Righto, so thanks to pulling the sump off the other motor, here's our comparison. You can see how much more material is on that sump and where our new capacity is.